my bigger point of the student debt moratorium is gone in the next couple months. So this is what everybody needs to know. Okay, we're gonna go through it a couple times. I know it's gonna be irritating, but just stick with me because you need to know this because this is important because you're gonna have to start paying back your student debts again soon. All right, and we still don't know.
Right, there's no more ability to keep the pause button pushed. That has been sort of removed.
No, not unless you get like a hardship or something, and then that sucks because you're gonna be starting to eat interest on that money. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but I want to get into this because this is a big issue now where a lot of these people are not prepared to pay that back, and they're expecting there's going to be a lot more delinquencies and a lot more people going on hardship because they just haven't prepared, which is true. We haven't really given them ample ability to or information to prepare. But this was part of the debt ceiling deal. But this is what's going on. They're going to talk about it here. I found this actually a good clip from CBS, and they're going to talk about this a little bit.
Americans will soon need to make payments on their student loans for the first time in more than 3 years. The payment pause, which had been sparked by economic worries from the pandemic, will end in a few months. Interest on federal loans will resume on September 1st. A month after that, more than 40 million borrowers will have to start writing checks again. Restarting payments will have an effect on the economy as people start to pay bills they've been able to ignore since 2020. Samir Gadkari joins me now. He's president of the Institute for...
So, for those of you who don't know, it was supposed to end 60 days after whatever it was. Was it June 30th? Or when the Supreme Court made a decision on the student debt relief, right? Or the student debt forgiveness.
Right.
Supreme Court is still not given their answer to that yet. And nobody really knows which way they're going to go. Arguments seem to lead that it might be close to like a 5-4 decision. So that one might squeak by, it might not. It might also be that because of the complications behind it, the Supreme Court, instead of deciding on it here in June, they kick the can on it and they don't decide till October. Right, which kind of sucks for all of us, but it's not unusual in these kinds of complicated cases. So here's the deal. For a lot of you, starting September and October, you're going to have to start paying it back. September for certain interest rates they're going to start charging you interest again on those loans because it's been 0%. They've been charging us since Trump started this in 2020. But now they're going to start charging interest. So kind of what you need to know is you need to prepare for, well, okay, am I going to be paying loans back starting in September or October or whatever it is, right? They're going to talk a little bit about this and we're going to go through it. So this guy, Samir, he's a pretty good example of what to do. Gives us a good example.
Access and success. Samir, what will be the effect of changing this payment pause on student borrowers?
Well, John, for the 40 million Americans who have student loan debt, they're going to need to resume making payments. And we know that there are many people who struggle with student loan debt and making student payments alongside housing, food, childcare, and the many other expenses that they have. And so we know that that's going to be a hardship for some of those borrowers.
Okay, so let's also talk about this from a personal level and from an investing level, okay? On a personal level, for a lot of younger people who just got out of college, you haven't had to pay your student loans yet. If you've gotten out of college in the last 3 years.
Right. Some people have literally never made a payment.
Yeah. So let us be the first to say, welcome to the sewer, ladies and gentlemen. Because it sucks. Now, what you need to do, first off, and I'll just say this a bunch of times, you need to find out who your student, go to studentaid.gov, and you need to find out who your loan borrower is, who the intermediary is, if it's Mohila or Navient or It's probably Navient is probably the most common. You need to find out who they are. There are different payment programs you can get on. Ideally, what you want to do is get on an income-driven repayment program. What they do is they figure, okay, based on your income, you have X amount of discretionary income, and then under the new Biden thing, it's 5% of that. Whatever that discretionary number is, that's what you'll owe every month, right? So if you're making low income and you've got kids and a lot of bills and stuff, it could be that your monthly payment is $0. It could be that it's really low, it's $20 or $100 or whatever it is, right?
Right.
If now you're not going to be getting into the interest at all, but the interest won't grow because under Biden's new plan, his executive action, they can't tack on more interest. So if you borrowed $25,000, it will never go above $25,000, which is a huge thing. And Lacey and I can tell you about it because we've known people who've paid for years and the loans were higher 10 years later after they've been paying because they've been paying the minimum for 10 years.
Right. They borrowed a certain amount and been paying, but they're not even satisfying all the interest in their payments. So they look down and they go, how have I been paying this for 10 years and I owe $20,000 more than I did before? Or whatever amount. But yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. So pay attention to that because that's a good news for you scenario because now even if you're making the minimum payment, they're not going to be adding interest. So it won't ever go above what you borrowed. So that's good news, right? So the income-driven repayment plan, you can pay that lower amount. You're not going to be dinging down the principal at all, but at least you're not struggling every month. Okay? So look into income-driven repayment if you can get it. Most people should be able to. The other thing I would say is this is I wouldn't discount that, like people have asked, should we start paying it now? I've had clients ask that, right? Okay. I would say this. If you're in a situation where you can get the income-driven repayment plan right now and you can get, or you have like a PSLF, which is the student loan forgiveness for civil servants, teachers, people who work in nonprofits, or if you have any sort of loan forgiveness, right now, you're getting credit for it even if you're not paying it. So no, don't pay it until you finally have to. Take the free credits, right? At 0% interest. The other thing I would say is this: if you have less than 10 or 20,000 and 20,000 and you got grant money, Pell Grant, then I'd probably hold off too on paying it back because if in fact the Supreme Court does come back and say, yeah, Biden can do the debt relief and your debts get wiped out, why are you paying it? Because that's just you throwing away money.
Right.
Right. So if you pay $500 now and then they forgive your debt, well, you're not going to get your $500 back.
Quite frankly, people that are wanting to start paying on it, and because they're thinking about how they want to take advantage of the no interest happening right now, etc., you could always just stack that cash that you're wanting to pay onto it into a savings account to the side, ready to go, ready to throw at it, depending on what some of the outcomes are of these various things. Because what's complicated on the student loan front right now is you have the Biden debt relief that the Supreme Court's looking at. You have them recounting people's payments on income-based repayment plan forgiveness and on public student loan forgiveness as well. So you've got two different programs where they're reevaluating everybody's counts. So I'm all about getting rid of the student loan debt, but I say maybe consider sticking it into a savings account to the side, whatever money you want to throw at it, and wait to see how the dust settles, because you might come out better than you expected, depending on how these things all go.
Right. So what Lacey's saying is if you, let's say you don't have the income-driven repayment, and let's say you don't have any loan forgiveness, and none of that's going to apply to you for whatever reason, then yeah, it does make sense to make payments now at 0% interest because you're just paying down principal, right? But Lacey said, well, why bother doing that? Why not just stack that money in a savings account and wait and see what happens? And then if, sure enough, I'm not going to get the debt relief, then just take the money in that savings account and make one huge bulk payment and pay it down anyway. Because it's basically, mathematically, it's going to come out pretty much the same.
Right. But at least, while that's sort of your backup plan, you could very easily just wait and see, because there are so many different types of forgiveness that are out there right now,
right,
that are being re-evaluated in ways that we don't totally understand how it's going to impact us yet, because they haven't gone through and recounted a lot of these things for us yet.
And we'll get into more of that.
Might all feel better than we thought.
And we'll get into more of that in a second, because the bottom line is whether you like it or not, it has become such a popular thing now, the idea of student forgiveness, because we are the only developed country in the world that has this kind of debt problem, where kids have to pay this kind of money to their school. And we've talked about this before. It is cheaper for you to go to school in Paris or Berlin or Tokyo, right, to literally move out of the country and go to school in a foreign country than it is for you to go to your local state college. Right? I mean, imagine that. Where'd you get your degree? Berlin. Ohio State, loser. Come on. But that's the truth, because those colleges are free or close to it. Right? We're the only country that charges kids this much money to go to school. It's ridiculous. And so this has become a big popular thing where it's like, yeah, we should get rid of student debt. We need to do something about it. What was I going to say? Yeah, so good points. If you can get income driven, go for that. If you're eligible for PSLF, check. That means you're a civil servant, you work for a nonprofit, right? So teachers, nurses, police officers, firefighters, you work for a political nonprofit, you can get it, you just got to, I think it's 10 years, right? Is it 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the public student loan forgiveness, 10 years.
So those are the good ones. But also, like Lacey said, you don't know, because it's such a popular thing now. Biden, even if he loses this, is probably going to push for something new. And the Democrats are going to be pushing for different ways to get rid of this debt problem, because it is a big issue. Because I want you to factor this in. When they were talking about this, 41 million people are going to now have to start paying loans again, right? We factored that in last time, and it was, was 2021 when we factored the last time loans were paid, and the government collected over $80 billion, right, in student loan payments. Okay, that's $80 billion now not going into the economy that these people can't spend on themselves, right? So you're going to look at a big hit to the economy pretty quick. So for the investors paying attention, that's going to be a big drop, because you're going to start to see, and you want to talk about inflation dropping. Demand is going to drive it way the hell down. So that's, there's upsides and downsides to all this. So let's watch a little bit more of this.
3 years of behavioral change is hard to kind of reverse all of a sudden. Is there going to be any grace period or acclimation for those who've been spending that money every month on other things?
Well, John, one of the things that it's important to remember is that early in the pandemic, the Trump administration started the payment pause, and the Biden administration continued it in reflection of the many challenges that people have been facing. Over the last couple of years, the administration put in place relief programs designed to help the student loan payment systems start and go more smoothly. So there are going to be programs including income-driven repayment and Fresh Start that millions of borrowers can avail themselves of if they take steps now to help them as their payments resume.
So what steps do they need?
Okay, so just to liven him up a little bit, he's a little stiff, and he's a little grease on the hinges. All right, what he's saying is, find out who is running your student loan payment, right? Whether it's Mohila, Navient, whoever, find out, get in contact with them, sign up for income-driven repayment, sign up and look and see if there's any forgiveness plans or anything else that you can qualify for, because they have to give them to you now. And there's more regulation on top of them, because it used to be they wouldn't tell you this shit. And don't trust them either. If they ask them specifically, because they have to tell you, they can't lie. If they lie, they get in even more trouble. But ask, is there any other relief programs or forgiveness programs or anything like that? Because there are, like you said, Smart Start and some other stuff. So you need to get in contact with them and ask, and sooner is better than later. And that's it.
One thing that he brought up that I appreciated is the idea of our behaviors with money. That's something I talk to my clients about so much. When we have certain habits that we've gotten into with our money, it's really, really, really difficult to change them. It takes a lot of work to change them. And one of the things that has happened since we've been on pause for 3 years, we've gotten used to doing different things with those funds. And some people are going to be able to adjust back much better than others, but it really is, setting the stage for a pretty big disaster, because people don't just suddenly change their habits easily overnight. People are going to forget to make payment. People are going to not be able to make payments. People are going to, have issues with getting on the right repayment plan. There are going to be so many issues based on the fact that we haven't been doing anything with this for so long. It's really could be a potential huge train wreck.
Oh, absolutely.